Here we are. Credit Banking Mastermind number 22. Can you believe that?
That's wild.
Man,
We're already that far into the year. That's crazy.
I'm excited. And we're talking about everybody's favorite topic tonight, which is budget.
Woo!
Budget, the big B word, and we're going to talk about it. We're going to be talking about how, what the average budget is, but we're also going to be looking at ways to increase cash flow through either increasing your income, decreasing your expenses, or maybe a little of both. But first of all, we have to share my screen, of course, because we want to do that. And we want to start the PowerPoint because you all want to see what's on my screen. You all want to know what I'm talking about, what I'm doing. And then I don't think I'm sharing it right. I think I'm sharing, I've got two screens here, folks. So I got to share the actual PowerPoint screen. There we go. There we go. All right. Awesome. What are we talking about today? The same thing we talk about every night, Pinky. We're trying to take over the universe with credit banking and the search for the lost American dream. Each and every week, we spend time diving into this strategy of learning how to bank through our lines of credit. And that is, the goal of this is to eliminate our debt in 1/3 the time and save ourselves all of that interest that we pay to the banks. But this topic, when we travel and we work with clients or people take classes online, this could be a 6 to 8 hour, 12-hour course when you start looking at other advanced strategies as well. But we're going to break this down tonight. We're covering budget. So let's dive right on in. Let's get the disclaimer out of the way, Mr. Fleming.
Oh, I'm not a licensed attorney, accountant, financial advisor, broker, any other licensed individual. If I've had that license, not act in that capacity. So you got to do your due diligence. Basically, Wise Guys and Ties isn't liable for any mistakes you go out and do without seeking the right professional help. We always recommend that you work with professionals when you are evaluating your situation, especially financial situations.
Yes. All right, moving right along. My name is Joseph Smith. This is my business partner, Mr. Ray Fleming. We are the Wise Guys and Ties. Wise in the ways of helping you do credit banking. Wise in the ways of discussing budgets. Why are we wise? Because we've screwed it up in our lives so many times. We might as well tell you all the places and pitfalls where we fell down so you don't make the same mistakes. No, we've been working with several clients. We actually have hundreds of clients that we've worked with that have successfully eliminated their debt. They've been able to grow their wealth, and we want to share that information with you too. And so if at any point you want to reach out and start working with us, our contact information is on the screen, and we'll show that again at the end of the presentation. But today is budget. I'm so excited about budget. Everybody loves talking about budget. Everybody loves making a budget, and everybody loves keeping a budget. Budget is the first thing that we have to do. The goal of talking about budget. This whole presentation is broken down into like an Indiana Jones theme because we want to find that lost treasure, the American dream that we wanted to have. Because what we set out for was unfortunately became the American nightmare.
Yeah, that's right.
We want freedom, financial freedom. And so it starts, so the path to get there is unclear to us, and the map was broken up into different segments. Today, we've got to look at just a part of the map to get us there. Budget. Budget is what we're looking at because we've got to know where we're starting. What is a budget? It consists of basically two items, your income and your expenses. Sounds simple enough, right? But how come most people can't make one or keep one?
Because it doesn't sound that fun. No, but it's right. You bring up a good point. It can be super exciting if you understand how to do it the right way.
Right. Exactly.
It really is.
So with the budget, we're going to be looking today at some averages. We're going to look at average incomes, but we're going to be talking a lot about your personal situation as well. And as with all of our presentations, we do a little bit of training in the beginning, and then we transition into a case study where we go over actual real life numbers as we implement the credit banking strategy. So stay tuned for that at the end. Okay, so here's what we're looking at. We're looking at the average two-income American family and what does their budget consist of. These numbers are pulled from the Bureau of the U.S. Labor and Statistics. They get their information from the U.S. Census. Also, some of the loan information and lines of credit information are pulled from averages from across several different banks. But the average two-income American family has $5,000 of net income that comes in every month after taxes have been paid. And so and any type of like insurance has been paid. So you got the natives are coming after you, shooting arrows at you. But the first thing in the budget that usually gets paid is the house payment. It's either a rent payment or a mortgage payment. So in this example, we're looking at a home, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home, because on average, the most prevalent home that most Americans live in, or at least the two-income American family live in, is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. So we're looking at what does that consist of? Well, if we're taking averages all across the United States, from Hawaii to New York, Florida to Iowa, Oklahoma, Arizona, Montana, all over the United States, taking averages from Texas to Michigan, all over the place. So when we average all of that out, we find that the average debt that's being carried is about $200,000. And so the average principal and interest payment that's being made is $1,200 a month at an average of 6%. Then we look at the next item in the budget, and that would be your automobile. So we have two-income American family. So they both have income, so they both have jobs, so they both need a car to get to their job,
Right.
unless they can commute or carpool. But so we have two vehicles. The average payment on a vehicle is about $300 a month. So then that means a $600 a month is what we're setting aside for the vehicles. Now, let's look at credit card payments. So here's what we're looking at with credit card payments. The average two-income American family has about $15,000 in credit limits. That could be across multiple credit cards, lines of credit, personal secured lines of credit. It could be your overdraft account for your bank account. But the sad reality is that our limits are very high. So they're carrying a $12,000 balance. And the average credit card interest rate right now is 21% interest. So we're just moving right through. We'll go back and talk about a little bit more of this in a minute, but then we have to budget for your lifestyle. Do you go out and do you get Starbucks coffees? Do you have Netflix, for entertainment? What is the water bill, the power bill, the food bill, right? How do you live? Do you scrimp and save and eat tortillas and beans, or do you eat out? How many people live in your house, right? Do you have a lot of kids? So your numbers might not match the numbers on the screen here identically, but this is just a two-income American family. There's no kids, right? So their expenses are going to be different than yours, but the principles that we talk about are going to be quite the same. And then the last thing we look at is people create a savings plan. And so there's long-term savings and there's your short-term savings, we might call that. Long-term savings tends to be what you put away into a 401k or an IRA, whereas your short-term savings are what you put in a savings account. And so when you total that up for a two-income American family, the majority of that, about $1,200 of that is going away every month into retirement accounts, 401ks. And then there may be setting aside $200 a month, maybe for Christmas coming up or something like that. Right?
Yeah.
So this represents the budget. So you have $5,000, if you add it up, $5,000 coming in and $5,000 going out. And this is kind of where I want to stop for a second. We had a couple of people put in chat here, just people saying hi, good evening, everybody, welcome, hello, salutations, love to have you here. Okay, so let's talk about budgets. So there's a budget up there. That might not be your budget. Your budget might look totally different than that. You might have seen other trainings that have similar numbers up there, and you're like, no one ever covers my numbers. Right? That's not my number. Well, let's talk about a budget. As you see, we have income and we have expenses up there. what I wanted to focus on today, because we don't really talk about this, I feel like enough, are what are the ways, because what is the goal? Ultimately, look at the bottom line there. What is the cash flow at in this budget?
Well, there is no cash flow.
That's right. So the goal of this is, how do we maximize the cash flow? In this budget, we can make some adjustments, and we'll do that in a moment. But if this isn't your budget, the adjustments we make to the budget you see on your screen is going to be irrelevant to you. So let's talk about other ways, other than how we do things, that we might. So there's 3 ways to approach this. How do we, 1, increase income?
Right.
Or how do we decrease expenses? Or how do we do a combination of both? But here's what I want to try to keep in mind. Ray, most people who come at this, financial planners, they're going to start looking at your budget, and they're going to find ways to cut out.
Right.
How to cut back.
That's always the
Dave
Ramsey, cut it back.
Right. Nothing wrong with that, especially because a lot of people spend way too much.
Right.
But my thoughts are, shouldn't we, the same attention that we give to cutting back, shouldn't we give the equal amount of attention to increasing income?
Very good point. It's lopsided.
Why don't you share with me and our audience some of your ideas on how we might increase income?
Quite frankly, I always go with helping out your fellow man or woman. Everybody out there needs something. And the easiest and quickest way to increase income is helping other folks get what they want. We do that a lot by affiliate programs, different things like that. For example, say you know a business owner that is struggling right now and needs access to funds. There's businesses out there. For one, there's a business called Wise Guys and Ties that that is always looking for referrals for business owners who need funding. There's referrals for really anything and everything. And when you become a business owner, all you're doing is solving problems. So if you find somebody with a need, all you have to do is fill it.
I agree. So starting a business is because we have a certain amount of education, we have a certain amount of confidence, because we've done it multiple times. 7 businesses started between the 2 of us, right? Well, together, you have like 20 other businesses that you've started on your own. But starting a business is, you use the term all the time, a side hustle.
Right.
Working something, and referrals, potions, lotions, marketing, something. Put a lemonade stand at the end of the street.
Exactly.
Find junk in the garage and sell it on eBay.
Actually, I literally just did that. Yesterday, was it? No, it was the day before. So I'm at TJ Maxx because I have to get my kids sandals. This was because we forgot shoes and we wanted to go to the cemetery. We were going to pay respects for Memorial Days, go put flowers on all the service members in our family. And so we needed sandals, right? And I'm sitting in the checkout line, and there is a coffee mug there, a Back to the Future coffee mug. Looks pretty cool, right? And so I'm looking at it, I was like, oh, this is only $2.99. And so I just hop on eBay and I'm like, and I look at sold items on eBay, and it just sold yesterday the exact same cup for $19.99, and they paid $13.99 in shipping. So I'm literally, these people are looking at me and I'm like on the floor. I just get a lot of fun out of this too. Because I'm like, Jane, she just thinks I'm nuts, but I get real excitement out of this. And I'm like on the floor in the line at TJ Maxx, and I'm taking the photos and I uploaded it before I even checked out of the register, and it already sold. And then so now all I gotta do is just like have my wife drop it off at the post office, but that was $20.
There you go, $20.
You guys don't realize Marshall's, all these little businesses, and then that's a business. That is literally a business.
Fix and flipping junk.
Yeah, yard sales.
Not that many of those are happening necessarily.
If you're in a state that is opened up, there's a whole lot going on because people have spent the last 2 months cleaning. If you're still kind of shut down, get ready for when everybody starts selling all their stuff that they've been cleaning out for the last few months.
Now, That's great. Some people are like, wow, that's great for you, but I would never do that. Okay. If that works for you, awesome. Sounds like a lot of hassle. But still, there are so many different ways. I mean, invite rich folks over, have them sit in your couch, and then their change falls out, and then when they leave,
There you go.
ruffle through the cushions and get change together. No, I mean, really, there's a lot of actual simple ways that people can increase their income. I mean, some people think about working extra hours if your job offers overtime, or picking up a second job, a part-time job. But the problem there is you're giving up extra time. And your time is very valuable. If you're working at a job, one of the things that people don't realize is that you can make adjustments to your W-4.
Ooh,
right? Your deductions. And so if you increase your deductions, then you actually get to keep more money in your paycheck. And so some of you might already know that, of course. There's also people who are putting a lot of money away, maybe into a 401k or an IRA, and maybe they don't need to put that much in there.
Ooh, that gets a little scary though when we talk about that. And I'm like, well, maybe you shouldn't be putting any money in there right now if you're hemorrhaging over here.
Yeah. Die today so that there's maybe money tomorrow. I don't know. But I mean, it is wise to plan, and you want to be good stewards of your money, and we need to come up with an appropriate wealth building plan. But the one that's been picked for you with savings accounts and with 401ks, IRAs, it's not working for Americans. How do we increase the income? Well, obviously we talked about starting a business. There's a lot of ways to start businesses that are very, very inexpensive with the overhead. Those are the referral businesses that you were talking about. So if we're gonna get serious about really increasing our cash flow with our budget, and we've cut back as far as we can, maybe what we need to do is look at, well, what more can we do? And then there's different ways where sometimes you can get contributions. The kids go out there and sell bake cookies, sell cookies, cookie sales, bake sales. I mean, these might sound kind of silly to you, lemonade stands, but they make money, especially if everybody is cooped up in their house with nowhere to go and nothing to do. This stuff works. This stuff brings in money. Selling, obviously, I'm not necessarily covering ideas that no one's ever heard of before, but sometimes we have to talk about this because this gets dismissed and then nobody thinks about it or talks about it. So we want to look for ways to increase our income. And so those are some things I want to put out there, but also now talking about expenses. A lot of times people think about, oh man, well, I guess we're just going to have to do without, and we're going to go without this, and we're going to go without that. And we're going to have, some austerity measures that we're going to take place where we're just going to try to live in our house with no air conditioning, right? I mean, these kind of things, like, can we walk and bike ride to places without using the car, saving money on gas?
There's a million different ways, really. Yeah.
Well, people do this, but I think there's also some simpler ways that we find when we work with clients all the time where there's a lot of money that can be freed up that people aren't even thinking about.
I mean, subscriptions. I sign up for stuff. If you have Amazon or anything like that, Amazon is, you sign up for that 30-day free trial of, say, HBO or something, but then you forget about it. And then it's just that, those $5, those $10, those $15 a month, they add up quickly.
Sometimes they're not monthly. Sometimes you signed up for an annual subscription. You don't even know, and then you're like, and those always seem to happen at the worst time. And then you get like, oh, the bank just got overdrawn. So your subscriptions, I mean, one time you were telling me you looked and you had like duplicate subscriptions.
Oh, absolutely. All the time.
And of music, I think it was one time you're like, I'm paying for this same thing twice.
They make errors all the time. We were dealing with that other we had an online service. We had canceled it and everything, and they were still continuing to charge us. And we had canceled it 2 or 3 times, ended up having to, really submit emails and all this stuff to get it refunded back because it was 3 months that they had continued to charge us. but those little charges can go unnoticed if you're not paying attention.
Absolutely. There's so many areas of duplication, and then there are areas not necessarily of duplication, but that are similar. Like we might have Hulu, and then we might have Disney, and then we might have Netflix. And so,
you bring up a good point. Disney, right now, a lot of Verizon customers have access to the Disney Plus for a year. But as soon as that year's up, boom, they're going to start charging. And, that's plenty of time for everybody to forget about it.
And it's, what is it, $6 or $7? It's not like you're going to necessarily feel that impact very much. But if you have a lot of these services, and you might say, oh no, we have all these people in the family and each one has their show. And I mean, I get it. I'm just saying, like, we start looking at that. We've looked at people's cell phone bills and seen outrageous expenses, and how simply moving from one carrier to another carrier could literally save you 50 or 80 bucks. We've seen, just because the carrier you're with is, I mean, if you stay with someone out of loyalty for a long time, like those folks, they don't reward that loyalty very well. They seem to charge you more, and they offer incentives for bringing in new people. So you need to follow the incentives for new people, because then when you leave, even though you really like that service, go to this other service for a while, and then they'll beg to have you back, giving you some like really awesome deal, or tell them you're canceling.
I was gonna say, I love that. Just call them up to cancel. You have no intentions of canceling, but then their retention department is going to offer you a smoking good deal or something like that. And,
this also works with insurance, auto insurance, and all your insurances that you have, really. But you call up the insurance, you're like, we're going to cancel this policy and go to someone else. And they're like, whoa, wait a minute. Why? So definitely want to look at that.
My sister-in-law, she had a fifth wheel that they use twice a year. So just started renting it out on Airbnb. Basically is paying for the monthly payment of it and the insurance. And all of a sudden, there.
Well, that's
all these little things that we have sitting around that.
Going back to that other side of income, if you have a nice car, you could put that out, rent it out on Turo.
Yeah,
right?
There you go.
There's people, I mean, another side hustle that a lot of people pick up is Uber Eats. We've got several clients that we work with that pick up several $100s every week just doing Uber Eats, which is super easy. I was thinking, we had one client one time who had life insurance. And I mean, when you look at life insurance, you want to make sure that you have enough. You want to cover all your expenses. Usually you don't want to leave any debt behind for your loved ones. As we looked at this client's life insurance, this client had 3 life insurance policies that were well into the millions, but the liability this client had was maybe $300,000. And so each of these policies, because of the client's age, were rather expensive.
Yeah.
And so, we can't make decisions for you, and we're not trying to, but how much do you need for life insurance? And so I guess having all that extra money, that would be good, and leaving that behind for somebody, you've got to take that into consideration. But for the cost of that client, that was, I remember, like $1,500 a month was going out to cover all of these policies. And when we just kept one and kept the largest one, canceled the smaller 2, then we that freed up $1,000.
Wow, that's a lot of money.
So everybody's situation is different. And I'm not saying you should cancel life insurance policies. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that look for areas of duplication. Then after you've tried to eliminate every duplication, then we look at cutting back. And that's where, but so many people, they skip some of these easier things, ways where you could easily bring in some extra income, driving a few nights, doing some Uber Eats. Maybe that's for you, a time for you to get out of the house and listen to some audiobooks or something while you do something like that, and bring in a few extra $100 a week. But then in terms of all those duplications, so many people will cut so many things out, and then You know, when you start living a life where you're cutting back and you're cutting back so hard, so much, it can lead to a scarcity mentality. It can become very depressing for folks. They begin to turn and channel all this
Right.
negative energy inward, and then they feel like it's hopeless and they're in despair. So we're throwing out a lot of ideas, and hopefully it's helping you brainstorm and come up with some other ideas of your own. But regardless, we want to create ultimately cash flow, because cash flow, the whole goal of this is to create cash flow, because cash flow is what's going to fuel us on our journey towards financial freedom, because cash flow is the lifeblood of credit banking. It's what makes it work. Um, we're on a channel right now called the Velocity channel. The Velocity channel is because they teach the strategy velocity banking, credit banking, velocity banking, mortgage sweep strategies, cash flow banking. It goes by so many different names, but you must have cash flow. That's the critical component. That's why we start here first. And so let's look at some of the ways that we would work with this budget. If this was the budget we were looking at, we would start, okay, so actually as I'm thinking about it, I don't know that we're actually going to cover the areas, but what we would do in this budget is we would say $1,400 a month going into long-term savings. Are they getting the benefit that they're looking for? That's putting a whole lot of money into the bank and into Wall Street's hands. But some people say, but my company is matching it at 4% or at 6% match. So that's like free money. Free money when you're vested. And they're like, yeah, I'm vested. Okay. But then that's money that is still quote unquote yours, that's being invested. And if it's also money that's lost in investment, that was your free money that was then lost,
right,
in an investment.
Yeah, it's like you're wanting to hold on to one investment because it's making a little bit of a return, where your other investment over here is losing a significant amount of money. That's really what it is. Because I asked them, where's your mortgage at? So if you have the mortgage that you're losing a lot of money to interest, yet you're trying to hold on to the 4%. What do we call that?
Tripping over dollars to pick up pennies.
Pennies, yes.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So when we look at credit banking and we look at our budget, we got to start eliminating this debt. And so the question that always comes up is, well, how do you know which debts to pay off first? And well, we have to identify which is the most inefficient. So it's hard to tell, because we want to, well, what's the biggest debt that we have? And that's the one we want to pay off first. Or what's the one with the highest interest rate? And that's the one we want to pay off first. But really what we need to do is we need to use this formula, because this is mathematically looking at a ratio or a comparison between how our money is actually being utilized towards this debt, meaning it's telling us how efficient this debt is. So debt efficiency is when you take your loan balance and you divide it by your minimum payment. And we'll be working with some of this today, but let's do an example here. $10,000 loan one, $10,000 loan number two, but the minimum monthly payment is $100 on the first one, and then it's $1,000 on the other one. So if we do the math of taking the balance and dividing it by the payment, we see that the efficiency on one is 100 and the other is 10. Well, then we have to put that on a continuum, on a spectrum. And so when we cover this a lot, and people are like, well, what does that mean when they always see us doing these little numbers and we're dividing it all out? Well, here's what it means. The closer the debt efficiency ratio is to zero, the more inefficient that debt is. So that is why we've got to immediately get out of that, because that is a wasteful use of so the payment is so high in comparison to the total amount owed that it's very inefficient. So interest has nothing to do with this. Really, the total loan amount has nothing to do with it. And the payment by itself has nothing to do. We're looking at the comparison of how much is owed versus how much is paid.
Really, I guess it's like looking at the leverage of it. How much on a small amount you're able to leverage.
Exactly. So once you get to where the number of the efficiency is around 50, well, that's where we look at seeing if we can get out of that debt by sometimes restructuring it into restructuring the payment or refinancing. So there is a time to refinance.
Sure.
Right. And then for those amounts that are 100 or even over 100, then those are very efficient. And that's what starts falling into good debt category. Good debt is usually debt that you can manage, you can afford it. And because it's not inefficient, we can hold on to that debt longer, which gives us a positive payment history, helps us really build our credit. And so this is how we look at debt efficiency. So we want to pay off the things that are lower on the continuum first, and then work our way up to the ones that are more efficient. So pay off the lowest number on the continuum first. So what we've been looking at today is our map, right? We were looking at budget, and then next week we're going to get into lines versus loans, where we begin to look at how expensive is the interest on a line of credit? How expensive is the interest on a loan? Let's compare that. Is it the same? Is a 5% interest on, or let's take 21. We were dealing 21% interest on a credit card, and then 21% interest on the loan. Would those be the same?
No.
Well, they both use simple interest, Ray.
Right.
So
they both could say APR.
And if you go to a banker, they will argue with you all day that it is a simple interest rate.
It is true. It's just,
it depends on your perspective.
Yeah.
It's really volume over time, right? I could charge you a simple interest rate, but make you pay it all up front, right? And then that's very expensive for you today, but maybe not as expensive for you over time.
Right.
Or I could charge you that interest on the back end.
Right.
Right. And then it's very affordable today, but then it could be very expensive later. So again, we're talking lines versus loans. And then once we understand budget and how to create our cash flow, and then we understand the difference of how these lines and how these loans are amortized, and it's different. Amortized is the schedule of the repayment and how the interest is paid back. Once we understand that, we can utilize the lines versus the loans together with the cash flow that we generated from our budget and move to the last piece in our puzzle, which is the credit banking actual strategy of pushing our income through our lines of credit. Well, first of all, taking our line of credit to take a chunk out of an expensive loan, converting it into bringing it out of its high amortization, high interest rate that you're paying at the time into a low APR, and then using your income to sweep down that debt. Actually, it's the cash flow. So the income and expenses are going into the line of credit, but it's the cash flow that we free up that really pays down that debt. So how does that all work out? So when we start taking our map, because we're looking for financial freedom, we got to put all of these pieces together, right? This is what we're working on. And then when we bring it together into one map and we start on the journey of getting our budget together and understanding our lines versus our loans, then we're well on our way to doing credit banking and finding that lost American dream.
Beautiful.
At this point, we have a public service announcement from Mr. Ray Fleming before we get into our case study, because I like today's case study. Some of our case studies seem to be following some pretty predictable, patterns. And that's good because we want people to learn strategy. But this one we're going to go over today, I think has a nice little twist to it that gives us a few other options to talk about.
Dun, dun, dun.
But first, we got to hear
a plot twist.
Mr. Ray Fleming.
Plot twist, like always.
Go ahead, Ray.
All right, everybody. Let's just cruise right through here because we got to let you know where it is and where credit banking, where it fits in the entire scheme of things. Yes, in the whole system of what it means to live in America and play in the American banking system, because we call these the 5 pillars of wealth, or what you can see on there is 4, but I'll talk about the 5th pillar here in a minute. There's taxes, banking, business, real estate, and education. The thing is, every single dollar in the US economy flows through all of these pillars. Now, if you do not understand these pillars, you will be taken advantage of. It is quite simple. If you don't understand how to play poker and you sit down with the big boys at the poker table, they're going to take all your money. But if you learn the strategies, you learn the tips and tricks, and you learn how to read what's coming, you can play with the big boys.
I've heard it said that if you can learn how to leverage these systems to your advantage, or you could not learn the systems and let them leverage you to their advantage.
That's right. Let's just do a little quick rundown on how credit banking plays into this entire equation with the taxes, banking, business, and real estate. So let's take a business like Wise Guys and Ties LLC. It goes out and purchases a vehicle because it needs a vehicle to go out there, check on its properties, look at the projects, also drive around to clients, different things like that. It's going to spend $15,000. Now, one of the other companies that's involved in this is J-Team. J-Team is another company that wants to use a vehicle, but wants to figure out the most effective and efficient way to actually do that. So Wise Guys and Ties will lease truck over to, say, Joseph's company, J-Team. And for that, we got to figure out some reasonable exchange, nothing too crazy, but a $200 a month lease payment.
But these are companies that we own.
Right. These are companies we own.
And so J-Team's going to be marketing for Wise Guys.
Right. It all has a synergistic approach.
Right.
And then so J-Team runs out, and then they, through their marketing and whatnot, bring in $40,000 in 12 months. Not too shabby. But out of that revenue that comes into that business, we need to actually pay for that vehicle. So J-Team has to pay for the lease, pay for the maintenance. It's got to pay for the gas. It's got to pay for the insurance, and that comes out to $633 a month on average. Mm-hmm. So out there making money, but we have these business expenses.
So the business system is learning how to start a business and start having it bring in a stream of income.
Structuring it properly.
So Widget's got a stream of income from the lease. J-Team is able to use that truck to go out and market.
Absolutely. Good point.
Awesome.
Now, so how does this fit into the taxes? There's two different ways to approach this. They could all be itemized out, or the easy, simplest way is, if you look at the tax bar there, the vehicle drives 20,000 miles a year. Well, the IRS allows you to deduct 58 cents off of every mile driven. All right. So what does that actually look like? That means the government, the IRS, is going to extend you $11,600 a year at those numbers of tax deductible of tax deductions.
Tax savings.
Yeah, tax savings, really. So that means if you made $11,600 and you drove 20,000 miles, now that is tax-free money. So where does this fit into the equation? Well, we're spending the $633 a month for 12 months. That equates to $7,600. Now, what's really nice about that is we can take the mileage deduction, and then that leaves us a surplus of basically $4,000 of tax write-offs. It's almost like the government's paying you. If you divide that monthly, it's like the government's paying you $333.33 a month.
Who's got a better car
to just drive the vehicle for your business?
That's the tax write-offs for J-Team, but what's the tax write-off for Wise Guys?
Well, see, that's the great thing is Wise Guys, they spent $15,000, and however they did it, they can pretty much write off almost that full amount the very first year, or they could extend that out over a couple of years. It really depends on the tax strategy. That's what's so beautiful about it is you can choose legally how much in taxes you want to pay. There's things that we're carrying forward this year because we didn't want to write them off last year. Mm-hmm. That's what's really nice. We could take it all the way to zero, but then if it looks like you didn't make any money,
then who wants to lend any money?
There's strategies involved here, and that's what's beautiful. Now, where does this fit into the real estate business in that equation? Well, the cash flow that comes off of the real estate properties, the rental properties, that equates to about $1,500 of extra cash flow. And we got to use the truck. We got to use the truck to go and look at that. We also have some fix and flips going. We wholesale properties. So we have to drive around and take a look at those as well. That will bring in, let's say it brings in $58,000 through those business dealings.
Just so you know, I added in the rental from the truck into that. So that 58,000, or yeah, that number right there, the 12,000.
Oh, perfect. Right there. So then we got the rental in there as well. So we're looking at now some revenue of $72,000, all because of the truck, or the truck had a part in that. Now, if we start to get buy into all these little businesses together, now we're looking at a pretty significant yearly revenue to these businesses, and being able to access as many of the deductions as possible. Now, of course, there's all the other deductions that we're not even talking about, over 400 business deductions when you start to structure your life this way. Paying children, different things like that.
If you look at this, how many different ways have we paid for the truck? And then in the credit banking, if Widget, Wise Guys and Ties took out the $15,000 in the loan, it could be using that money to sweep down that debt through a credit banking strategy.
Absolutely. That's what's so beautiful. Is this just the basic, but I mean, we can go so far advanced on this. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that.
So Wise Guys and Ties uses these systems.
Yeah. So there you go. Up at the top, there is Wise Guys and Ties. We learned all this through an education called Renatus, which we're going to end up showing all of you how that actually works. It really helps you understand how to keep your wealth, but also how to build your wealth. This is through all sorts of different practitioner instructors who are specialists in the world of business, taxes, finance, but also business and real estate investing. Now,
this is the fifth pillar.
Yeah, this is the fifth pillar, the education pillar. Now, of course, you can continue on your education, and the most you could ever spend with Renatus is $25,000. I ended up spending that, and it was totally worth it. But
what did that really cost you, though, with everything you created?
Oh, it's paid for itself tenfold. But you know, a lot of folks don't even start that way. Maybe they just want to start with just a couple of classes and dip their toes.
Yeah, you could get started for less than $2,000.
But what our goal is, we are here to help you figure out how you can truly produce wealth and not be 80, 90 years old and worried about how you're going to pay your bills. The true way to wealth in America is through business ownership and real estate investing. It has a track record, a proven track record, time and time again. 90% of millionaires, financially free folks, have done something with business, and they hold their wealth in real estate. The reason that we are pushing this so hard is we are going to help you get out of debt, but then it's up to you on learning how to grow it even further. You may be afraid of real estate, but that's okay. It's just because you don't know. Anything new, anything without knowledge is scary. And so what we're here is we're committed to working with you and helping you move forward so it is not scary anymore. And that's what we're going to be talking a lot about on Thursday. And let you guys know that on Thursday. We'll just talk about that real quick. On Thursday, 6 p.m., same channel, same place. We're going to be going over our real estate investing mastermind. We have a new structure to our real estate investing mastermind, which is really nice. We have about 8 weeks that we're going to be covering different topics. And then we're also going to be having a case study every single week. And so, and that's what's really cool, is this is going to be one of those things that you can partake in. You guys can submit projects, deals, things like that, and that we can evaluate live and get the input on, hey, what should we actually do with this? How's that all going to work? And each week we're going to be talking about a different strategy. This week, we're going to be talking about taxes, business structure, how to structure everything properly. That's what we're going to be talking about this week a little bit more in depth. So similar to the budget training, we're going to start having our real estate trainings, and that is that's the new kind of outline for the way things are going to start going down lately.
I love credit banking because it is such a great strategy to eliminate debt and create wealth. Mm-hmm. But I like how you show how it fits in the whole scheme of things, because it is just one of many systems that we can use to eliminate our debt, but also break free of this. I don't know, sometimes I feel like we're caught in the matrix. We made a video about that, and it was great. You looked great with that whole look, Morpheus. But no, I mean, we do get caught in this never-ending cycle of indebtedness. And it's like we have to, do you ever feel like the government and the corporations and the banks have like conspired together to keep us in a hamster wheel?
Oh, absolutely. It's been planned and it's been designed before you were even born.
Well, and I love what we're doing here.
We're just gonna have to start another day of conspiracies, but it's not even a conspiracy anymore.
It is a conspiracy, but everybody knows about it.
Yeah,
that's what's kind of sad.
George Carlin had it right.
Well, about some things, but maybe not about all things. All right, well, folks, let's go ahead and right now I'm gonna stop my share on that screen and let's bring up our case study because we got some fun stuff to talk about today. I am super excited. Let me see here. So I have to go back and click this button here, that button here, and we go back to here. I got to close out of all of these things. Okay, come on now. If I can get it to work.
Let's see, hit that screen. Perfect. There we go. All right, as he pulls up the credit banking case study for tonight, like we said, the case study for tonight has a little twist to it. This is something a little bit different than what we normally see, even though, it's good to intermix some of these new things that you haven't seen before.
Perfect. Okay, let me see if we can, there we go.
All right, looks good.
All right, here we are, Mastermind number 22. Here we are. Each and every week, this is where, okay, so we've been talking for a while to you. We've been training, been going over, helping free your mind, right? To think outside the bank. Now, this is where we want you to participate. If you're in the Mastermind, if you're following along on YouTube, come along with us on this journey, but we want you to participate. We want you to throw out your answers. The only way you're going to learn this is by engaging, by taking the subject matter and really learning it. So first and foremost, let's go over what are the three requirements for credit banking. Now, we cover this a lot. Everybody should know this who's been in on these for a while, right? So go ahead. I'm not even going to give you any hints, right? There's three things that we need to be able to do credit banking. What are they?
All right. What do we need?
There's three things.
Three things. Yes. Got a couple of folks chiming in here.
All right. We want you typing in if you're on the Mastermind. Go ahead and take this time to plug in.
Nasty Fran says debt tool.
Debt tool. Well, let's talk about debt. You need debt first.
Oh, and debt and cash flow.
Yes, your debt, and you need so we need monthly positive cash flow, and the debt tool is either going to be a line of credit or a credit card. So good job, Nasty Fran, you rock. So we need these three things. So if you're thinking about your own situation, you're like, will credit banking work for me? Well, first of all, you have to ask yourself, do I have any debt? You're like, yeah, check, right? I should do that. Let's see. I wonder if I can put check marks on these boxes here. There we go. There we go. That's what I wanted to see. All right. Perfect. So do you have debt? Check. What about positive monthly cash flow? This can be tough for some because some folks are like, My expenses are more than my income. Like, that's a rough place to be in, right? We can't even play the credit banking game if you don't have positive monthly cash flow. But hopefully today we've inspired you to find different ways that you could maybe start making that happen. We talked about jokingly some funny things, but we did cover a lot of legitimate options to increase your income as well as decrease expenses. And when you combine both of those, you should be able to get to the point where you have some positive monthly cash flow. And then our debt tool, our debt buster. What are we going to use to break up all this debt? Well, ideally, we'd like to see a line of credit because it's very stable. And credit cards, they work on the same principle as the line of credit, but the terms and conditions on those can change at a moment's notice.
Very true.
And so I like that a line of credit is more stable, but we can work with either given that we understand how these tools work. But if we have all three, then we get to play, the credit banking game, right? Boom. Okay, so let's check for debt. Do we have debt here? Let's see. Oh, here's a loan amount for $170,000, right? Here's an auto loan for $30,000. Here's some credit card debt.
Yeah.
Here's some store card debt. So,
Yeah.
So we've got debt.
Got plenty.
What about monthly positive cash flow? Well, let's take our income and let's minus our expenses. Oops. What do we get? Folks who are using the play along at home game, what do we got? What is our cash flow?
$500.
That's right. So we got $500 of cash flow. That's good. This is positive cash flow though, so we like that. $500 of cash flow. Okay, so let's go ahead and give that its own special color. Perfect. So we've got cash flow, folks. Now, next we need a line of credit or a credit card. So this would be a loan. So that's not what we're looking for. Here is $3,000 in a savings account to life insurance policies valued over $10,000. Here's an auto loan. No, credit card. We have $1,000 limit here, $3,000 limit here, and we have a $5,000 limit here. Okay, so that means we have $9,000 of available credit. Oh, but look at all these balances that we're carrying. So we are carrying a balance. So we don't have all 9,000 available to us, which brings us to talking about utilization. Utilization is very important that we figure out how much of our credit we're utilizing. So that's when we take our balance and we divide it by our limit. What is our utilization? Anybody out there calculating it? Grab your calculator. Come on, you can do it. I believe in you.
7,566 divided by $9,000. Somewhere around 84%.
That's right. Not 84 cents, right? That would be 84%. So our utilization currently is at 84%. Now, why are we looking at utilization right now? Why is this a big deal, Mr. Fleming?
Utilization is extremely important because, yeah, there you go, David. It's important because it has a heavy weight on your personal credit score. It also it has a heavy factor as to how the credit accounts you currently have are going to behave. Mm-hmm. I think that's the easiest way to say it is.
Well, let me ask you this. If this was 84% utilization on a line of credit, would you be as concerned as it would be 84% utilization on a credit card? Which one are you more concerned?
I'm more concerned with the credit cards.
Why?
Typically, as long as they've been coded correctly, lines of credit don't factor in utilization.
Mm-hmm.
And so credit cards, when you have your utilization being factored in, that's roughly 30% of your score, your profile is affected by that.
So let me ask you, what if I have a credit card that's over 50%, its utilization is over 50%, and it's been that way for, say, 12 months?
Well, you're not.
What's the danger?
The danger is when you make lump sum payments to pay that line down, the danger is that they will drop your limit.
They could.
They could. I've seen it. And say you're at the 5,000 and then you pay off 4,000 of that, bringing you down to 1,000 because you were maxed out. Then they drop you down to 1,200 or 1,000, and then you're back at 100% utilization.
So if things are going well, if the economy is going well, the money's flowing, banks are lending, and the interest rates are really low, and everything's going like gangbusters, how likely is that to happen?
When it's going good, it's not as likely.
Now, let's say credit markets are tightening, lending restrictions are getting harder, money is getting more scarce. Now, what is the likelihood of utilization affecting your credit card limits?
It has a really, really heavy weight, a huge heavy weight, because we're already starting to see that, the restriction on personal lending. So
we can't emphasize enough that if you are using credit cards and you are over 50% utilization, that as we are trying to do a credit banking strategy, we want to eliminate, a lot of people want to eliminate debt. They're like, I want to take out that home loan, or I want to take out the auto loan. But maybe the first thing we got to do is get under 50% utilization.
Yes.
Right? Or because if we lose our debt tool, our debt buster tool, then we will have to do an alternative strategy.
But you bring up a good point. We got to be a little bit more strategic in how we drop these balances.
Okie dokie. So this is a recent home mortgage loan. We can tell because 30 years is 360 months, but when we look at the start date, they have 351 payments left at 3.25% interest with a $982 payment. Not bad at all. They have $3,000 in a savings account, and they have 2 life insurance policies that have had over $10,000 of payments invested into them over 10 years. They have an auto loan of $30,000 with a monthly payment of $660. And then we have credit cards right here with the different limits, interest rates, current balance, and then the monthly payments.
Mm-hmm.
Store cards with the balances and their payments. So total on all the credit card payments, total debt on just owed on the retail and the credit card debt, $16,373. Okay. Ooh. So where do we begin? What do we do? Does anybody have any ideas? I mean, obviously we've talked to, obviously we want to eliminate that the credit card debt, but how do we do it?
That's a great question.
This is really open for you. This is really to help you. I mean, I know what I would do, and I know how I would do this really fast. But what I want, it's not for me to tell you. I mean, it's for me to help you, because if you're getting this, if you're coming to these masterminds week in and week out, you've got to be getting something out of this. And so this is your time to start throwing out. What would you do? Let's consider some options here. Because if I just keep telling you, then you're not doing, if you do the mental work and you put yourself out there and you're like, well, let's try this or let's do this. There really isn't any wrong answer as long as you're trying to eliminate this debt as quickly as possible. But I think this specific example, and I know you didn't see this one, Ray, but do you see some of the twists that the different options that are in here that we don't normally look at from week to week?
Well, there's life insurance in there.
Mm-hmm. $3,000 sitting in a savings account.
Right, that too. Which we don't usually see that much savings sitting in there. What's the store cards?
We look at what their expenses are.
Yeah, their monthly expenses are pretty low.
And we have to look at which credit card which one would we try to use to manage this.
Well, that's what's nice is we have the tools in place. You could definitely use that larger credit line, or even the secondary one, because it has a lower interest rate.
But look at this balancer.
Oh, yikes.
And all of these balances are running high.
Oh, yikes. Oh, so maybe it's time to open up another credit line?
Well, I was thinking if we could eliminate the balances on those credit lines and keep the available balance, and we're showing, some good activity there, might be time to ask for a credit limit increase or an interest rate reduction.
Could definitely do that.
Anything coming in off of YouTube?
Let's see. Any ideas out there?
For those who are attending in the webinar, Kiona, Mohammed, this is your opportunity to go ahead and share any thoughts that you have. Now, if you're pretty new and you've never actually done credit banking, then I understand. But let's go ahead, since we've got some shy folks here. Here's what I'm looking at right here. We have some assets. All right. If we borrow, can we borrow against the life insurance policy?
Absolutely.
And so how much can we get out of this?
Well, I mean, you could borrow up, usually, depending on the policy, but many times, up to whatever the cash value is.
Right. So I could borrow up to $10,000, right? It's unclear to me if this is $10,000 total in two policies or if it's $10,000 in each policy. But let's just say it's $10,000, right? So we could borrow. Now, how do you pay that back?
They usually have some type of monthly payment plan, but it's guaranteed by the fact that you will die.
You have a death benefit.
Yeah. So
if you don't pay?
If you don't pay, then they'll just take it out
of the death benefit.
Right.
Okay. So that's good. And then if you pay yourself back, with really interest, and then you're growing that policy, and then you could bank on yourself again.
It's really creating your own bank.
Yeah. Okay. So there's already right now $10,000 that we could borrow right there. And
that's huge.
There's $3,000 in savings. But what if somebody's saying, well, we better keep that 3,000 there just in case there's a rainy day, right?
Right.
Should we don't want to touch the 3,000?
I would touch it.
Well,
it just depends on.
What if we could take our 10,000, and what if we could eliminate? Look at these amounts here. Oh, we got somebody sharing something here, coming in here. When it comes to credit banking, so here's the question. When it comes to credit banking, my problem is the constraints trying to fix the score on lower income. What are some ways to use credit to make better assets instead of making it a liability? So what are some, see, I just don't OT out a better, make out a better asset instead. So in this situation here, this is where a lot of people are in reality. They don't free up $2,000 of cash flow. They look at their expenses and they're freeing up about $500 of cash flow. So that's pretty normal that we see with folks with lower income. Now, if you have two incomes and you have a lot more money, we've seen higher cash flow amounts here. But we also usually, every time we see those, we see a lot of debt that goes with that as well. So these debt balances, could be considered quite low. But borrowing the money from this life insurance policy doesn't make the life insurance policy go away. So it's not a liability really to us, but it's a way to bank on the fact that this person has had two whole life policies with $10,000 of a cash benefit. Most people don't realize that that's an asset, that you've actually turned your life insurance into something that you could, like an ATM.
Yeah, if you have a whole life policy, you've been paying on it for a couple of years, 5, 10 years, you've been paying on this even longer. It might be something you want to take a look at, the cash value there.
But if we can free up all of this credit, that make this $9,000 of credit available to us, this is where we can now accelerate the pay down and eliminate a lot of our debt, freeing up cash flow. And actually, it's kind of funny, but we could eliminate the savings and actually increase our savings by finding ways to reinvest in other areas. So can you do an example with $10.45 an hour? Absolutely. You know what I would recommend to not only you, Kiona, but to anybody, if you go, here's where we get this. Where do we get the information here? This comes from people who participate in these masterminds. What they do is they go to, here, I'll show it to you. Wise guys in ties, right? .com/credit-banking. And what happens is you and anybody else can go in and put your own numbers in there. Because these numbers we're dealing with, this is an actual client. These are actual people that put their numbers in. These aren't made up or fake numbers. Everybody that's a part of this mastermind, you were telling me we have over 160 people that not everybody watches live or can watch live the whole time, but they're watching these recordings. And so they put their information in there, and we go over a case study each and every week. And so we've worked with people who have no cash flow. And we show you each and every week. So what do we do when somebody has a lot of cash flow? What do we do when somebody has negative cash flow? How do we get out of that situation? How do we work through that? So the more information that you provide in terms of the income and the credit that's available, loans and debts that you have, what's your current situation? Do you have any assets? Do you have store cards? What is the current situation? And then, yes, there is a strategy, and we cover it for each and every person. So if you want to look at a $10.45 an hour wage and put that income together and put the whole profile together, and then you can call and get a 30-minute free consultation. When you put that information into the credit banking website, if you want to work with us one-on-one, you get a free 30 minutes for us to cover your situation. In the current situation field, you could just type in, please call me or email me, right? And then we will do that. All right, perfect. So so for credit banking to work, what we covered, and you might been here, you might not. To do credit banking, you need debt, you need monthly positive cash flow, and you need access to either a line of credit or a credit card. Now, for everybody has debt, how do we get to the place with monthly positive cash flow? That was the subject matter of today's training, where we talked about how to increase your income. What are the different ways that we can bring in multiple streams of income? What are the different things that you can do, or or what are things that, and how do we free up cash flow by looking at our expenses? And so we spend a lot of time today talking about both income and expenses, and then lines of credit. Not everybody has a line of credit, and not everybody has credit cards, but there are ways to still get access to the same benefits of having a credit card or a line of credit if you understand how to do what's called, say, secured lines of credit. And so there's different ways to set all of this up. And we also worked some of these strategies through using another strategy called business credit.
Mm-hmm.
Business credit
That's right.
is another way to help us find lines of credit and free up lines of credit. Because sometimes people have shipwrecked their personal finances, and there's no way that they can get any type of credit, even secured credit. But we can easily get that through business credit. So we work on so many different strategies. So definitely, if you want to participate, anybody wants to participate, you're welcome. You're more than welcome. Go to wiseguysandties.com/credit-banking, and you can participate in any of these masterminds. All right. So when we look at this, so what would we do? Well, we could figure out the debt efficiencies on all of this. I'm going to tell you that that all of these cards are pretty low. So we just want to eliminate all of that as quickly as possible. And a lot of this could be done right away with the 10,000, right? And you see, I don't know how long that these cards have been maxed out.
Yeah.
But we make an assumption here, if we haven't talked to the person, that this is something recent within the last 6 months.
Right.
So if it's within the last 6 months, there's hope. And so we can immediately take action. So is this $10,000 doing us any good sitting there doing nothing? Or could it do a lot of good eliminating this debt and saving our credit limits? Because our credit limits are now going to become our new checking and savings account. This is what we're going to do. And then, so we've got $3,000 here that we can use to pay down some of these balances. So we've got some pretty hefty balances here. Here's a 3,700, 3,600. So when we start eliminating that, look what's going to happen. As soon as you take this $10,000 in here and you eliminate this, right? Look at what we're freeing up. 55, 55, 84. Look what's going to happen. Here's what's going to happen. Oops. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to free up $55. And then you're going to free up another $55
Nice.
a month. And you're going to free up another $84.
Beautiful.
So that's going to turn our cash flow from where it was at 500 to now 694. And conversely, I mean, it's the same thing, but we're going to take all of this and we're going to subtract it out, and we're going to lower our expenses. So we're decreasing our expenses, which is increasing our cash flow. That's essentially what's happened here. But then this credit card utilization, which is very important, goes down to 0, right? So we save the available credit line. And as we're going to go through this, as you're going to see, we'll have the opportunity every 6 months of using the credit banking method for 6 months solid.
Mm-hmm.
You could go and ask for a credit limit increase or an interest rate reduction and get one or both.
Yep.
Okay. So here we are, having eliminated all of that debt just right off the bat with that 10,000. So now we're looking at, do we want to use that 3,000 here? Holding that in reserve. For me, it's like, well, what if we start adding this up? We could free up some more cash flow right off the bat. I mean, we've got 694, right? So we could free up. So if we take our 3,000, let's take our 3,000. Because people are thinking, well, wait a minute, why why would you get, Ray, why would we be doing this? This isn't a savings account. Why would we do this?
Well, so we can really create an expansion of the accounts. We're going to turn the credit lines into our new checking and savings accounts. As long as it's sitting in a savings account, that's really the bank's lending pool, and it's not doing you any good.
No, it isn't. In fact, oops. Whatever. One of these days, I'm going to learn how to use the computer. It'll happen. So we begin to, we're looking at, and then let's take this 1571 and we'll take it, look at this 139. Let's take it out of that 139 right there. Okay, so we got 3749, and we're subtracting 1571. And so now that balance is going to be 2,178. So that's what this balance. So we eliminated these. So let's add 27 and 29. So we'll have to move this out of the way. So we're going to add an additional 27, and we're going to add 29. Was it?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Oops. So now we're at $750 of cash flow. And I mean, also what we've done here is we have reduced expenses by another 27 and another $29.
Right.
So brought our expenses down to 2,450. Okay, so $750 of cash flow. So here's what happens. Each and every month, we're going to take our income. Well, so let's work it the other way. I'm going to take my $9,000 in lines of credit, and I'm going to use it to pay down debt. So we're going to, let's say we're now going to throw the 2,000 and this 3,000. We're gonna start throwing this onto our lines of credit, and then pay that off. And how do we pay it off? We're pushing our income every month in paying down the line of credit, but then we're putting our monthly expenses of 2,450 onto our lines of credit. That's happening every month. And so with the leftover is $750. That's our cash flow. So we can take our debt, and if we divide it by 750, right, that'll tell us how many months it's going to take to pay off that debt. So this $2,178 is going to be paid off in 3 months, right? 3 months. Okay. So now we have $3,649, right? $3,649. We got to divide. Oh, but when we did that, when we paid off this last one in 3 months, we just increased our cash flow by $139. So let us not forget to add in $139. So, because this is now money that we're not having to spend on that bill anymore. So now we're at $889 of cash flow because we have decreased our expenses by $139. $139. So now that's $889. Last store card that needs to be paid, $889, right? So let us see. So 5 months.
Wow.
5 months. So now we're at 8 months in, and we freed up now another $37. So now we can, we've decreased our expenses by another $37, and we have increased our cash flow by the same amount. So now we're at
926.
926. And now these store cards are all zeroed out. These credit cards are all zeroed out. And so we've just eliminated. So look at all this debt. All of the credit card debt, right? All of the store card debt totaled $16,373. Now, We took $10,000 and wiped that out, but there was $6,373. Now, when you look at where we started, right? Well, we started with only $500 of cash flow, but as we started eliminating all that debt, now we've almost doubled our cash flow.
That's awesome.
And so now we're in a position to, what do we want to tackle? Do we want to tackle this home mortgage or the car loan first? Well, we learned about debt efficiency today.
So take the loan amount divided by the monthly payment.
So that's a percentage, right? Well, that's not a percentage, it's a ratio. And then we can take this amount and we can divide this by 982. So the debt efficiency on the home loan, right? So if we pull this out, the debt efficiency right here.
There you go. Yeah, Nasty Fran says go for the car loan.
Perfect. That's exactly what I was hoping that you guys would pick up here, right? Because we're looking at the same thing, debt efficiency 45. So this is below 50, which is this is definitely, we want to pay this off.
Danger zone.
Exactly. So now we've been doing this now, though, if we look at it for 8 months. So 8 months of paying this down, that's going to change just a little bit. It might be 28, 27, 28. But let's pretend that we're starting, because see, I don't know the interest rate, so I can't actually determine the exact amortization of this. But let's pretend that it's $30,000, right? That's the amount. So let's come down here. All right, we have to pay down $30,000, and we have $926 of cash flow every month to pay that down. So every month we're gonna put we're gonna take a chunk, not every month, but we're gonna take a chunk out of that 30,000 with our credit cards, and then we're going to be paying that down using our income, and then paying that down. But then we put our expenses back on the credit cards, but then we put our income and our expenses. What ultimately we're doing when we do that is we're applying our $926 of cash flow that way. $926 of cash flow. And that is going to be done, if you see this, in 32.4 months, or let's just round that up to 33 months. To give you an idea, how long is 33 months, right? That's 2.75 years, or two years and 9 months.
That's one way to pay off a car. Right. I like it.
So, I mean, if this, depending on how this is amortized, this is going to, I mean, this could be they sometimes put these auto loans out for 7 years, right? Could be a 5-year, could be a 7-year. You know, I don't know with where we're at in this one, but imagine taking if it was 7 years, if this is how it was amortized over 7 years and paying it off in 2 3/4 years, or what if this was 5 years left on that? Still, that's saving you not only the money, the extra interest, but saving you the time. So it's paying that off. So now what do? We've just freed up an extra $660 of cash flow. Folks, look at our cash flow now. We've tripled our cash flow. We've more than tripled our cash flow. More than tripled our cash flow. Now, taking a look at this, let's take a look at this mortgage that we're in. First of all, I think we forgot to keep up here. So We got to subtract out our 660 up here as well. So we've really reduced those expenses. So here's our income, 3,200. Now, how are we going to eliminate this mortgage? Well, let's pull out our handy dandy credit banking calculator. Because everything we've been doing through credit banking is it's pretty much it's the same principle, but we put it into this. We put all of this into a spreadsheet. Because first of all, we want you to understand the math behind it. Now, I don't know if people can see this. If I need to share,
let's see.
Let me make sure I'm sharing my screen.
Nope. Let's switch it. There we go.
Sorry, folks. I want you to be able to see my screen. I apologize for that. Okay. So when I switched over, this is a credit banking calculator that we use to calculate how quickly we can pay down mortgages or large loans. So what we were looking at mostly on this previous page was taking down smaller things, but it's the same principle. Now, you should realize when we are using these strategies and we're using the math and we're dividing it, this looks amazing, and it is. But keep in mind that there's two things that we're making assumptions on. We're making the assumption that your income is going to remain stable or steady, and that your expenses are going to remain the same.
Mm-hmm.
But what is the reality of life? Does your income stay the same all the time?
If you're just a regular hourly job, it's pretty stable.
Could be, yeah. What about your expenses? Are those always stable?
No, those fluctuate.
Sometimes it's more expensive in the summer or winter, depending on where you live. Right. So again, this mathematical stuff that we're going through, you've got to also take into account real life. And so you need to constantly recalculate your numbers as your income and your expenses change. Then you need to recalculate your credit banking strategy because it'll affect your cash flow one way or the other. Okay, so let's take the numbers from the loan here. So we have $170,000, right? And then we have an interest rate. We have an interest rate of 3.25, and the term was 360. So you see the payment here is $739.85. Well, wait a minute. Why is their payment $982, right?
Taxes and insurance.
That's right.
Those are always factored in.
Right. So this calculator, if you're using this is only calculating your principal and your interest. But you always have to also take into account taxes and insurance.
Mm-hmm.
All righty. So then let's go ahead and move this over here just a bit. And what we want to do is we want to put our our credit card interest rates. Did we have that? Did they share that here?
Yeah, so we got a couple all across the board.
12.8. 12.8 was the average. Yeah. So we'll put that in there. We'll just use the average. Income was 3,200. Right. So we want to put that in here, 3,200. And then we want to put our expenses we got our expenses down to 1,614.
Yes.
And so we've got our cash flow at 1,586.
Wow. Who would have thunk? 3,200 and you're able to pull out almost $1,600 of cash flow.
Look at that. Okay, so now we're talking about if we do nothing, right? It takes 30 years to pay off this mortgage. 30 years, right? Now, if we were to apply remember we had $500 of cash flow?
Uh-huh.
If we took $500 of cash flow, look at how much we could cut that in half. 30 years paid off in 15 years, saving yourself $53,000 of interest. Or you can use a credit banking method that we have here, freeing up all of this cash flow and pay off this 30-year mortgage and just what is that? 7 years and 4 months.
Wow, that's amazing.
7 years, 4 months, and save yourself over $67,000. Now, Ray, someone will say to me, and I get this all the time, well, why are you using all of these credit cards? You freed up all of that cash flow. Why don't you just put that cash flow? Why don't you just pay off all your money and just put it into the loan?
Because what we're doing is we're creating a checking and a savings account. This is not just to pay down debt, but this is also your protection, your safety net in case of emergencies.
Wait a moment. If I took the same amount of cash flow that I freed up every month, and I just make principal-only payments every month, extra principal payments every month, won't I achieve the same timeline and the same savings that you will? Won't I pay it off in 7.33 years?
You would. However, what usually ends up happening, and that's why we're in this problem in the first place, is because when you do that, where else are you going to put those emergencies, those extra expenses? Those end up going on a credit card. That's when you end up using store credit and credit improperly. And so that's really what the problem is that is the default design, and that's why we're in the situation in the first place.
Right.
Utilizing the credit banking strategy is learning how to play the game the right way. So you improve your credit score, you maximize your lendability, and you reduce your debt with less risk.
So if I take all of my cash flow and I put it into the mortgage, how much of the buying power do I lose of that money? What percentage of the buying?
You lose 100% of that buying power.
Because it's gone.
It's gone.
The bank won't ever give that back to me.
Right.
I mean, it's gone into the equity into my house.
Right.
But as long as I'm living there, I can't really access it.
Right.
Okay. Now, if I channel this through a line of credit and make the same payments but using a line of credit is somebody else's money.
Right.
So I'm going to pay off my mortgage with somebody else's money, but the converting my cash into available credit, what have I lost anything?
No, it's just been converted to credit. See, it's interesting that as this design of life was laid before us and how we buy things, we understood that we needed to leverage, but it was only halfway. So we would leverage to get houses, we would leverage to get cars, but then we insisted on using our own money to pay down the debt. But why didn't we just continue leveraging to pay down the debt?
Right, because if you use a credit banking strategy, not only are you going to use other people's money to pay down your debt, all it's going to really cost you is your monthly interest rate on that. So if it's now at 12.8, I mean this is awesome. But let's clear that out. 12.8, and we divide that by 12, means a little bit more than 1%. That's all it's costing you per month to use somebody else's money. That's it. And then so we use somebody else's money. It only costs us 1% a month. And what do we get in return? The rest of that returns back to us in available credit. We still retain. So if we put all of our cash into paying down that line of credit, we get back available credit minus the 1% that it costs to pay that, right?
Yeah, that savings of $67,000.
Right.
It's insane.
And so you're saving that money, but you're also not losing your buying power. Then over 7 years, seven years and 4 months, what's going to happen to those lines of credit?
They're going to be growing.
Right. You'll be able to double, maybe even triple those lines of credit in that time. And so the person who took all of their money and put it into the line of credit or put it into the loan, where are their lines of credit?
Probably still maxed out.
Or the same, or they've been maybe closed. So you end up further ahead. Your income to debt ratio goes down, your utilization goes down. All of these wonderful things happen. right? And then you have so many more options that are open to you. So folks, as we're showing you this credit banking strategy, again, it's hard to go over everything in one shot, right? That's why we're here each and every week. You got to keep coming, because today we discussed budget. Budget was a huge part of everything we went over today. But what you need to do is you need to come back, because next week we're going to be talking about lines versus loans, and there is so much that we have to cover that we haven't covered yet. So where are we in this? We just did the case study. So folks, next week we're going to be going over lines versus loans, and that's really heavy on math, because we want you to know that there's so much that you need to know in terms of being able to understand and calculate how expensive are credit cards, or as we kind of alluded here today, how inexpensive are credit cards.
Oh, it's night and day versus loans.
Loans, very expensive. But again, it depends on your perspective. Are we going to look down the tunnel of 30 years? Oh, well, they don't look that expensive. But are we going to look in this year, this 5-year window? Very expensive. It just depends on how you look at it. So let us, that was our case study. We're wrapping up here. But for those who were talking about, how do you participate? If you want to be a part of this, go to wiseguysandties.com/credit-banking, right? And you can participate in our Tuesday nights in these webinars. You'll get into the webinar where you can communicate to us directly. All you have to do is put your information in there, check mark the boxes to hold us harmless, because we're going to be talking about several strategies, but we're not licensed attorneys or accountants. Now, we don't share any of your information. This information that you put in goes nowhere. We don't even call you unless you want us to, right? The sole purpose that we're trying to do here is to help people learn how to change their finances, how to accelerate their ability to get out of debt. So you can fill in all of the information. You see it here on your screen. This is where we get the information. We have so many different folks that are working with us, and we're helping them to eliminate their debt. And I had somebody ask me the other day, well, what do you get out of this? Well,
that's a great question. If you like this, if you enjoy this, hit the thumbs up and go over to Wise Guys and Ties and subscribe.
Absolutely. I mean, we're grateful each and every week to come out here to the Velocity channel. You need to make sure you like and subscribe. And we're grateful to CJ Wallace, of course. But the only way that people can find this information and apply it is if you like and subscribe, if you comment, because that tells in their algorithm that this is an important video, so they push it out to more folks. But more importantly, what do we get out of this? In terms of financially, we don't get anything exactly out of this. Nobody's paying me any money to put this training on for you. Here's what I've learned. If I help enough people get what they want, then I eventually will get what I want, right? The great Zig Ziglar said that. Mm-hmm. And so if I can help folks eliminate their debt, if I can help them start creating wealth, start a business, generate and grow their income, what I found is that those are the people that, not all, but those are the people that we end up working with. And we end up doing a lot of amazing things in real estate and business finance. And so I found that it's easier for me to take care of people, to serve them. And along the way, you might find an opportunity that it works out for us to come together and work together. That's what, because somebody asked me, what do you get out of this? Well, that's what I get out of this. That's what both Ray and I get out of this. This is our ability to showcase what we know, what we can do, how we can serve you. Because we have a lot of folks that we work with. We have 150 clients that we're working with, and they can't all meet with us. But this is a great way for you to come on, get into a webinar, ask some questions, start the learning, start the financial healing, right?
Yes.
So, folks, if you want to start working with us, all you have to do, go to wiseguysandties.com, fill out that form, or you can give us a call, 888-524-9273, or you can email us. We'd love to hear from you. Because see, folks, don't give up, don't despair, don't feel like that the walls are closing in on you and you've lost all hope. There's a way out. This is, you're listening to this from somebody like me, 2 foreclosures and a bankruptcy. And I mean, everything fell apart. And I have a wife and 4 kids. I had to learn these strategies. I had to claw and my way out of a very bad financial situation. And it's strategies like this that totally turned my life around and saved me financially. And so I am grateful for the opportunity to be able to pass this knowledge and this strategy on to you because of what it did for me. I know that it can work for you. And I hear a lot of people say, well, you don't understand my situation. You don't know what I'm going through. And I'm like, when you don't have a way to provide food or clothing or shelter to your wife and your 4 kids, and you leave the house and you don't come back till you've made enough money that day, trust me, I know. I know what it's like to be in want. I know what it is to have plenty, right? But we can do all things through him who gives us strength. So folks, if you're looking for that strength, if you're looking for that kind of guidance, plug in. We want to help you. All right. Thank you so much. On behalf of myself, Joseph Smith, and Ray Fleming.
Good night, everybody.
We want to say good night and God bless.